Good morning, everyone, and welcome you to this third session in the Systematic Learning Program series, and that is Stress to Smiles. But before we begin, I would like to welcome Dr. Reena. She has joined the Systematic Learning Program starting from this session. And I'll request you, Dr. Reena, to introduce yourself, your name, occupation, city, your professional experience, one thing you are grateful for. Why did you join SLP, and what's your expectation from the session today?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Reena Dedia. I'm from Pune. I'm a homeopath by profession. I've been practicing since 2016. Before that, I was working for 3 years, and then I decided to start on my own. Um, and one thing that I'm really grateful for is being able to meet some really beautiful souls on this journey and have met a guru and being able to dedicate my life professionally also, but also personally dedicate my life on this path of sadhana as a meditator, as a spiritual being. And with SLP, when I heard the first introduction, what I really thought was as a doctor, we are not really taught how to manage. Like we're taught how to treat patients, but then how to manage your finances or how to deal with the stress that comes along with what the profession. And my expectation is just to bring more clarity uh, there in those areas, and also to I'm very open to learning anything that comes my way. So also I'm looking forward to a lot of new learning in it through this yearly program. So thank you so much. Uh,
Thank
and
you.
and I was also inspired by Ashish when I met him personally, just day before yesterday. So yeah, his presence also inspires me. Thank you.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual, Dr. Reena. So thank you for being a part of this program, and I'll request everybody to welcome Dr. Reena by typing in the chat also a brief introduction about yourself, and feel free to connect with her, and likewise Dr. Reena, feel free to connect with everyone in the group. And Dr. Reena spends her time between Pune and Himachal, and she's holding two retreats in this year, one in April, one in October. And I'll request Dr. Reena to share about her April retreat in this group for the benefit of everybody and anybody who wants to join. I'm going for the October one, but in case anybody is interested in joining the April one, please feel free to do so. Dr. Reena, this is something which people in the group are already familiar with, but for your benefit, I'd like to share that the learning takes place as per this 70-20-10 rule. 10% of the learning happens basis what we share in the session. 20% happens through interactions with while we are in the session or with your accountability partner. We will assign an accountability partner soon for you. Till such time you can consider me as your accountability partner. And 70% when we apply what we are learning. Some of these things we may be already familiar with, but the magic happens when we apply what we are picking up in the sessions today. So that's the intent with which we hold these sessions, not for intellectual curiosity, which is part of it, but mainly to be able to apply it. So on that note, we welcome everybody once again to Stress to Smiles, and I have in the 25 plus years of my working been highly stressed, and typically my response earlier used to be uh, to avoid stress. But now I realized a better way to do it is to make friends with stress and use it to our advantage. So in the next 3 to 4 sessions, that is what we'll be discussing. In the session today, we will look at what is stress and whether we should make friends with it or avoid it. What is good stress and what is bad stress, or distress? What is acute and chronic stress? How the stress impacts our body? How do we know that we are stressed? What are the causes of stress, the triggers for stress, and a mindfulness practice? So during the session, we will share two strategies with you to deal with stress. And I would encourage you to be highly interactive as always and share either today or later what is it that you would like me to cover in the next three sessions also, so that it is really relevant for you. So Sasha has given me his inputs just before everybody joined, so I'll incorporate that. Rosina has shared her inputs. So feel free, either put it in the group or DM me on what is it that you would like to cover, to be covered in the upcoming sessions. So on that note, let us start by understanding what is stress. And stress is our body's reaction. Please understand, we usually think of stress as a psychological thing, but it is our body's reaction to any harmful situation or a challenging situation, and whether that threat could be real or perceived. So even if we imagine some situation to be challenging or threatening, my body will respond in the same way as if the threat were real. And one thing that I share always in my sessions is that we have got a very old mind in a new body. And our body has been conditioned to deal with stress for millions of years that the human beings have been on the planet Earth. And of the 6 million years that we are estimated to be in the planet Earth, only last 10,000 years we have started settling down in villages, towns, or cities. For over good 5.9 million years, we used to live in jungle, and that's where we had a real threat to our life in the form of a wild animal, like a lion, tiger, snake, bear. And when we would sight, or when we are face to face with a wild animal, the body's typical response is to either run away, which is flight, or fight with the wild animal. That is how we are tuned to respond to the situation. And if we were to run away or to fight, in both the cases, we need more blood. In case we want to run away, we need more blood in our legs. Or if we want to fight, we need more blood and energy in our hands. But essentially the heart will start pumping faster, and our breath will become shallow. And the cortisol is released, and our muscles tighten, heart rate increases, breathing quickens, and blood pressure rises. So this is how we typically respond to stress. And what is also important for us to understand is when all of this is happening, our brain shuts down. So if you look at the picture on the right, more than about 50%, and we have one or two doctors in the group today. Please add or correct me if there is something you would like to share. 50 to 80% of our inputs to our brain are visual sense. And the way the information is processed is from the eyes, it goes to thalamus, from where it goes to occipital lobe, where it is processed and passed on to amygdala for action, for taking action. Amygdala is like the air traffic controller in an airport. So anytime flight lands or takes off, it is the air traffic controller who's regulating. Same way, the amygdala is regulating all the important functions in our body. But when we sense a threat, the logical processing does not happen. There is literally a short circuit that happens, and the information from thalamus is directly passed on to amygdala for action. And this is very important for us to understand as corporate professionals, that when we are stressed, we are not able to think clearly, we are not able to take decisions properly, etc. So while there is a wellness aspect to stress, there is also a cognitive aspect to stress, and we are not able to think clearly. and we land up taking decisions which we regret later. But looking just purely from the survival aspect, the same technique has helped us survive through the years. And it's in that way good because it helped us protect ourselves. If there was no stress, like there used to be a bird called dodo, and the bird dodo would not feel threatened if she came across a hunter or any wild animal, and then it was easily shot, right? And that is why it is extinct today, because it was shot and eaten. So stress has helped us survive. So that is the part we need to understand, that it is good because it helps us protect ourselves. Also, we need to understand that stress means different things to different people. And that is where the imagination perspective also comes in. For some people, it could be making a presentation, which could be highly stressful. For another, it could be facing a performance appraisal, which could be highly stressful. For another one, it could be relationships, which could be a matter of concern. For somebody else, it could be finance, which could be a matter of concern. So it always means different things to different people. Uh, And that is where we need to understand that it is also a function of our ability to handle stress. Some people are able to handle stress related to relationships better. Some people are able to handle performance appraisal better or presentations better. So it is what triggers me, what stresses me out versus a generic stress. There is no one universal stressor. These stressors are very individual, and that is what we are going to be diving deep into as we progress with this session. But understand that there are different types of stress, and not all stress is bad. If there were no stress, like dodo, then we would be, and that's why there is also a saying that don't be, you are dumb as a dodo. So if there is no stress, either there'll be no motivation because you don't feel like moving, you are bored, and if it is too much of stress, it leads to burnout. So we need to understand what is the optimum level of stress at which we should function, so that we are energized, we are created, motivated, interested, rather than tired, indecisive, having a fuzzy mind, exhausted, irritable, or anxious. So understanding that awareness, and part of the idea of doing this session, today's and the next two, three, is to increase our awareness and understanding about stress, so that we can make better choices. One of my teachers says that awareness is the basis for making informed choices. So by understanding stress better, becoming aware of it, we can use it to our advantage. So what you see on the green side, on the left side, is good stress, which is also known as eustress. And what you see on the right side is distress. And we are designed to handle stress in small doses. But if we are exposed to stress on a long-term basis, it leads to burnout. Like in jungles, when we would see a lion and the lion goes away, the cause of the stress is gone away, and body easily restores itself to the normal condition. But today what has happened is the stress is coming in form of relationships, like with boss or colleagues or customers, or spouse, siblings, parents, anybody else, and there is no escaping them. If you have a bad boss at work, and if you have a bad spouse at home, you are 24 hours, you have stress, and the body doesn't realize that this is not a life-threatening stress. It just keeps pumping blood faster, and we will see in some time. I'll play a video for us to see what is the impact of stress, how adversely the health effects of stress are. So this is, what leads it drains out our energy continuously. But we need to understand that we are not in a life-threatening situation, which is what stress helps us deal with. Now, let me play this video for you. It's a 10-minute video. Please pay attention. It is simple, but it's very powerful.
Your heart is actually a lot like the engine in your car. It has valves and it has pressurized chambers, and just like your engine is responsible for making the rest of the parts of your car run, your heart is responsible for the performance of a lot of the other.
Are you able to hear it?
Yes, Ashish.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But no video.
No video. Can hear it.
Yeah, we
Can't
can
you
just
see
hear
the
the
video?
audio. There's no video. We can't see the video.
Okay. Okay. Give me a minute.
Your heart is actually a lot.
How is it now?
Perfect.
Perfect? Okay.
Like the engine in your car. It has valves and it has pressurized chambers, and just like your engine is responsible for making the rest of the parts of your car run, your heart is responsible for the performance of a lot of the other organ functions in your body by getting blood and nutrients to them. So your car is designed to accelerate pretty quickly every once in a while. For example, if you pull out in front of a car a little bit too late, you might need to slam on the pedal and rev up the engine to get your tail out of there. And similarly, your heart and blood vessels respond to acute stress by kicking into overdrive. So your heart rate and the force of contraction increase, and your blood vessels tighten up to get blood and those nutrients, that oxygen flowing around the body a little bit faster in order to support your organs and tissues. And this is a really good thing if we're responding to an emergency. But just like we don't want to burn up the engine in our car by driving around at the max RPMs all the time, having our heart constantly operating in overdrive can be pretty damaging. And so I want to take a second and I want to talk about the damaging effects of stress on our heart. And the first damaging effect of stress on the heart that I want to talk about is related to increased blood pressure. So in response to the increased force of higher blood pressure during stress, the blood vessels distend a little bit, which means they get a little bit bigger. And so the blood vessels respond to this distension by building up a little bit more muscle and by becoming a little bit more rigid. And that increased vessel rigidity requires then more force from the pump, more force from our heart to move blood through the vessels, because they're getting tighter, they're becoming more toned. And so it leads to a vicious cycle of elevating blood pressure. They get higher and higher. And this can lead to a disease called hypertension, which I'll shorten as HTN. And that just refers to blood pressure that's too high. It's damagingly high. And one of the damaging effects of hypertension might be vascular disease. So let me write that in here. So vascular disease. And what vascular disease refers to is disease of the blood vessels. And so when blood constantly slams against our vessels at higher than normal pressure, our veins and arteries experience little episodes of damage. And this leads to inflammation and plaque buildup. And that plaque is super attractive to things like fat and cholesterol, which end up sticking to these little spots and narrowing our blood vessels. And one of the worst spots to experience this vascular disease is in our coronary arteries. And when I say coronary arteries, I'm referring to the arteries that feed our actual heart tissue. And so we call this kind of vascular disease coronary artery disease, or CAD for short. So CAD. And when these little vessels get clogged up, the very organ that pumps oxygen and nutrients to our whole body in the form of blood is unable to keep working. It actually dies because it's not getting the oxygen and nutrients that it needs as a tissue. And so when the heart tissue is unnourished and starts to die, we call that a heart attack. And without a working pump, the rest of our body is in real trouble. And it's not only our heart that can be damaged. Part of our metabolism, or the process of us breaking down food sources to get energy, that can be impacted negatively as well. So let me write down metabolism so that we can create a category for these damaging effects. So when we take in extra nutrients, our body stores a lot of those extra nutrients up for later use, and we build up this complex backup of reserves. But during the fight or flight response, which gets initiated by stress, our body secretes little hormones like cortisol and glucagon. So it secretes these little hormones like cortisol and glucagon helps convert those glucose energy stores back into usable forms of energy because we need that energy to either fight or to flee. And if the stress is just psychosocial and we aren't actually running for our lives, we don't actually need all of this extra energy. And so that extra glucose can really exacerbate metabolic conditions like diabetes, which is where we already have extra blood sugar. So I'm going to write down extra blood sugar because we don't actually need the energy. So this extra blood sugar is just floating around in our blood vessels. And it's especially serious as rates of lifestyle-based diabetes are skyrocketing, especially in westernized cultures. And then on top of everything, the extra glucose can also contribute to the cardiovascular disease, which is what we were talking about before. So too much blood sugar because of overuse of our stress response can be really damaging to us. And as if the damaging effects of stress on our metabolism and heart weren't enough, it turns out that our reproductive abilities are also impeded by overstress. So let me write down reproductive. So reproductive. So it turns out that in girls, reproduction is a huge energy expense. And in terms of ovulation and uterine development, but even more so at the prospect of pregnancy and fetal development. And so this exercise naturally gets shut down as a part of the acute stress response, as a part of that fight or flight response. And so that's understandable that we probably don't need to be making babies when we're running away from dinosaurs or when we are being chased by mutant zombies. But it turns out that with chronic stress, which usually accompanies those kind of psychosocial stressors, the hormones involved with pregnancy like LH, luteinizing hormone, and FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and subsequently estrogen and progesterone can become chronically inhibited, making it harder to release eggs or nurture their growth. And so girls' reproductive abilities can be really dampened by chronic stress. And boys experience a similar inhibition of sex hormones, namely in a reduction in testosterone. But the real interesting thing, though, is that testosterone levels are much less finicky and don't depend on the precisely timed cycles that girls experience. So it's really actually hard to reduce them to the point of infertility. But the big stress-induced problem in men is actually erectile dysfunction or impotency. Because remember that when the sympathetic nervous system gets turned on, our peripheral blood vessels clamp down so we can't or so that we can keep more blood to our core. And that means that less blood is flowing to our appendages, including the penis. So in fact, the majority of ED doctors or erectile dysfunction doctor visits in our country aren't related to organic impotency, but rather psychological induced impotency, often related to stress. And so stress rears its ugly head in the heart, and it rears its ugly head in our metabolism, and it even damages and disrupts our reproductive capacity. But if that weren't enough, the negative effects of stress continue into our immune function. So our immune function. And your immune system can be divided into two major categories. You have the innate system and the adaptive system, The adaptive system is pretty complex. It's the one that involves all those specific white blood cells and antibodies that allow our body to remember bad stuff and respond specifically. But on the other hand, the innate system is more basic and generic. And you can really think of it as the inflammation. So inflammation, and in the short term, acute stress, that fight or flight kind of stress, can lead to overuse of the immune system. We turn on this inflammation too much. And when we have too much inflammation, we can start attacking good things in our body. And a good example of this is arthritis, when our joints become overly inflamed. So we're attacking good things in our body. And so that's what happens in the short term. We're overusing this inflammatory response. But chronic stress causes some different problems. If our bodies get conditioned to this chronic stress, we can actually stop activating the immune system response appropriately, and our immune system can become suppressed. So now stress isn't necessarily making us sick, but it is making us more susceptible to illness. And it's making us more susceptible because our body's suppressing this immune system, which seems to be kind of acting too often. And so this has been shown in several experiments, including with animals and humans. So, and one example of this is decreased wound healing during stress. So research headed by Janice Keuchel-Glaser showed a 40% slower healing rate for little puncture wounds administered to graduate students right before a major exam compared to the same wounds applied during a summer vacation. And then another study by Sheldon Cohen showed increased susceptibility to illness during stress. They dropped a bit of virus in individuals' noses and showed about a 20% increase in the development of colds for those that were reporting chronic life stressors. So while stress is designed to be a really good thing that helps get us out of danger or helps us respond to challenges, it can really have some damaging effects on the physical aspect of our well-being.
Anybody would like to share? Their takeaways, any comments, questions on what we have discussed so far about stress? Morning, Dr. Abhishek. Hello, Dev Pranam.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Hi, Ashish.
Morning. So if no, then we will continue and you can comment later. So now we're coming to the next pass. Now what we have seen is what is stress, and then we don't need to necessarily avoid it. We can manage it, make friends with it, because in small doses, it's useful for us. What is bad is chronic stress, and we have seen how adversely it impacts our stress. But one of the challenges with stress is it's not easily recognizable. And that is what happened because everybody around us is so stressed that has become the default mode for us to live. And we are not able to understand that we are really stressed, as it happened in my own case. I realized that I'm under stress when I went for my dentist visit. And he told me that, Ashish, you are grinding your teeth a lot and you're wearing them down. You know, And that's when I realized that I'm under stress. And that is what makes it very important for us to pay attention to the symptoms that we or somebody around us may be experiencing, so that we can help either ourselves take timely action or help people around us. We have students, colleagues, friends, siblings, anybody who could be experiencing this. And the other thing is that this happens to the best of us. It is not that stress is being experienced only by weaklings. So there is nothing that we need to be shy of. Even the best of the best, like Arjun, who is considered to be the finest warrior who has lived, experiences stress. So when the war was about to start, Arjun is telling Krishna that, my mouth is dry, my hands are trembling, and my hair are standing on their end. I'm not able to hold Gandiv, and my skin is burning. So these are symptoms which each one of us, and we can think of it in terms of delivering an important presentation, or in today's term, that is what battle is. We are making a pitch presentation today. Then we may experience some of these things. So if we are feeling low energy, which is a result of constantly being stressed, clenched jaw and grinding teeth, which I talked about, upset stomach, irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, nausea, headaches, pains, tense muscles, especially in the area around here, those who are working would know that, sometimes these become like stone. They become so hard. uh, Chest pain, rapid heartbeat. Sometimes the heart is just pumping, especially when you may be having an argument, or there is some stressful situation, somebody shouting down on you. You can literally feel your heart may burst out of your chest. Not able to sleep. That's another major one. People not able to sleep properly because of stress. Overthinking, racing thoughts. Even when they go to bed, or even if they're able to fall asleep, the work-related thought process is going on. Frequent colds, infections, nervousness, shaking, trembling hands, tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears, sweaty hands, palms, dry mouth, swallowing, skin rashes. These are some of the physical symptoms of chronic stress. Moving on to understanding the emotional symptoms, it is becoming easily agitated. People snapping. If you find somebody snapping, it is not just anger regulation issue. It could also be the person is under a lot of stress, frustration, moody, overwhelmed, too much to do in too lesser time, uh, or having difficulty relaxing. Winding down is a big challenge. People are, there's a very nice couplet by Gulzar. पहले तो यारों शाम भी हुआ करती थी, अब तो दिन खत्म होता है रात पे. So earlier, in my parents' times, my father would be back by around 6 o'clock or so, and then we would go out visiting. There were no phones, there were no TV, so our social, engagement used to be visiting some friends or somebody coming over, and it would be unannounced, because there is no phone. So that used to be the winding down, and then you go to sleep. But today there is no winding down ritual that we have. We just, finish the work and go to bed, often checking the phone and emails till the time we go to sleep. Or self-worth issues, so low self-esteem is also a feeling lonely. And this is something which one should watch out for. If somebody is not social enough at your workplace or in family, with somebody withdrawing himself or herself, reach out to them gently and see what they may be dealing with. Worthlessness, depression, avoiding others. So rather than judge them, uh, be compassionate towards them and reach out to them. Similarly, if it is something that we are experiencing, rather than cut ourselves off from other people, it is important that we reach out to someone whom we trust, somebody we can confide with. It could be even a therapist, or somebody, and talk to them about the challenges we are facing. And then there is cognitive symptoms, which is constantly worrying, racing thoughts, which I talked about a little bit earlier, forgetfulness, not able to remember. There is a presentation that we have gone for, a pitch presentation or any other important presentation, and we have forgotten what it happens. It happens to the best of us. I also coach UPSC students, for those who write IAS exams. And once somebody was sharing with me that he was so stressed, he forgot to take his admit card to the hall. And then he lost that year, because by the time he went back and got the card, it was almost over. So, that is why it's very important for us to understand that we shouldn't have excess of stress, and that is what we're going to be discussing today in next couple of sessions. How to deal with stress, the inability to focus, which is so important. A distracted mind is an unhappy mind. A distracted mind is not a productive mind. With a focused mind, we can achieve possibly anything that we want to. I'm not able to take good decisions, and I have some senior people coming to me and say, I have $100 million investment decision to make, but I just can't decide because there is so many things. The mind is so clouded. Or it could be about what to do in life. It need not be $100 million, but what to do in life or how to handle our relationships. They are always looking at the pessimistic or the negative side. These are some of the challenges that we face. And once we handle stress better, we are able to think clearly. And this picture is from is of Doki River. I had the privilege of visiting this last year in January 2024, and the water is so clear. This is the cleanest river in Asia. When the water is so clear, you can see till the bottom of the river. Similarly, when our mind is muddy, you can't see, you can't take decisions, you can't think clearly. But if our mind is calm and settled, our ability to see through the root cause of the challenge is there, and we are able to take effective decisions. So I'll now pause here to see if this is making sense to you, if you have any questions or comments. On to the next one. Yes, Devparna.
No, Ashish, I was just listening and I didn't know I was unmuted.
Okay.
I just coughed. Sorry. No,
Uh,
it all rings very true. But there is also a very obvious thing that people who are stressed out will say, or people who do get anxious will say that there are certain things that we have learned now in our course of things, right? When stress comes, deep breathing deeply and six, seven different things. But when that bout of stress hits, you know, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you need to take a walk. Maybe breathing is not enough, you know. So uh, just noting my thoughts. I was very keenly listening to the.
yeah. Uh, Breathing is instant. It's portable. You can do focusing on breathing is the easiest and can be done anywhere. And that is one of the reasons we talk about breathing. But you're right. Sometimes this may not be enough, and we're going to talk about that. What
Yeah.
happens when thapede aate hain, then you're completely blown away with the stress that has hit us. So what do we do? That is one of the strategies, but not the only strategies. Thanks for sharing that, Deepana. Anjana, Dr. Reena, anything you want to share?
I think a couple of things, Ashish, which comes very clearly from the information shared by you and what you're discussing, and also let's say some bit of past experience. Um, like you said, it's the body DNA or the metabolism is aligned to fight or flight, right? The sort of fight or flight has changed now, but a lot of it depends on what your mind puts a red flag as stress. And once we have, somewhere, let's say like you said, a boss, right? Some things don't happen, and then there's a red flag, and then the minute you hear the boss raising his voice one level up, um, automatically, it's a stress flag that's raised, and your body starts reacting.
Yeah.
Now, we really don't know if that one volume up is because of you work or that's his natural way of getting attention. Because unfortunately, because of that stress, we a lot of times we don't look at the trigger for that or what is driving him to do that.
Beautiful.
So
Very,
this comes back to the same thing, that if we understand the cause of the stress, not our stress, but what is driving the stress,
yeah.
what's triggering it, and the cause of that stress, and you sort of consciously don't make sure that it doesn't trigger you. Once you know that this is the behavior. Right. So I'll tell you, I have this very crazy thing that my boss does every year between Jan and Feb, that he beats you down on your performance, on something, on company, on expectation, everything. It took us some time, but to realize that he did this not only with me, he would do it with everybody. Okay, just to make sure that your expectation for a review, raise, and promotion becomes minus 15. Then for the last 3 years, I didn't have this issue. Then this year again, there's a conversation. It really stumped me, because then I was speaking to somebody else and I said, this and this and this. And suddenly towards the end of that conversation, I started laughing. So this person, a very senior person, looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "You know what? I forgot this is February." So he said, "What does February have to do with it?" I said, "You don't know. His behavior is every February he'll beat you down. However well you've done, there'll be different reasons that he will, So then he just had a smile and I said, "Okay." And then whatever conversation he had on that, just disappeared. Because others that's really stressing about, because this is a very different angle to things that he was talking about. I'm like, what the hell? And if somebody had really taken that conversation seriously, you'd have put in your papers and left. It had nothing to do with your performance or what you're delivering. That conversation. So it's just that people have these, that could be his defense mechanism, so that he doesn't get into stress, that it's a habitual thing that he does every year with everybody. It just took me time to realize. So if we don't realize it and if we don't reset ourselves, right, then we are the ones who are going to be apt cases for heart attacks and everything else.
Very beautiful capture, Anjana, and starting with what you said about what we put red flag to, right? And our realizing that this is not life-threatening, and this is our body's way of responding to any threat. That is very important. And when we start making peace with what is happening, then not only are we able to handle our emotions and thoughts better, then we are able to see through the other person, reach out, what may be driving his trigger, what may be his trigger, what may be driving him to raise his voice or do whatever he's doing. And then eventually we gain better power, not only ourselves, but also over other people or over what is happening around us. So by being calm, by being more aware, we get not only more power for ourselves, but also people around us. Because, a very typical response could also be, if the boss is shouting, I start shouting back, or, I resign, both of which could be unproductive behaviors. So very beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Anjana. Dhruv, were you saying, Dr. Reena, you're saying something?
Yeah, I really like the presentation and how it sort of brought into perspective that it's not just something that happens to the body, but it's so like the mind and body are connected and they're one and they respond to each other. And that's why I like the video a lot. And yeah, 2, 3 things that I picked up was having a wind down routine. I definitely feel I could work on that myself. And also to what Anjana was saying, I remember this example that our teacher would give us. I had to study psychology as a part of homeopathy, and he would tell us that you're wearing your glasses have a blue color, and somebody else's glasses have a white color. And so when you look through your glasses, for you, the world appears shades of whatever the color of glass you are wearing, like blue. And for the other person, the world appears white. And then you are looking at the other person from that shade and expecting that he will understand your shade when he has his own shade to look at. So, like that sense of identification with what shade I am carrying, to question myself, can I remove that shade and look at the person for what he or she is instead of carrying my own fixed idea, own fixed worldview? Can I look at that with a clear mind? I like the example of the clear lake that you gave. And so when that clarity and when that stillness is there within you, then you can empathize with everybody. You don't have to obviously be sympathetic or be a doormat, but then there's a sense of empathy. And yeah, that's why I liked where the conversation was going with Anjan also.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Reena. Yeah, but that's Doki River, Dr. Reena, in Meghalaya. And it's beautiful. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And Dhruv, you were sharing something?
So the impact on body, yes, those are there. In fact, what I've personally experienced is muscle loss happens at that time. At least for me, that's how my body reacts. And identifying patterns, like what Anjana said, especially in the corporate world, or it could be extended even to personal world. When you're interacting with people, if you find patterns, it becomes easier for you to you to mentally accept those situations. Some things are in your control, some things you just have to take it like the boss. You just cannot do anything, not do much about it. Sometimes you do have opportunities, but if you're aware of that pattern, then you can play it correctly. Probably good for a travel or a holiday on those February, March months. That could be, or something else. Just that opportunities. Once you understand those patterns, your body behavior and how the environment is behaving at specific times, you can find solutions to it. But the first key is awareness of all of it.
That is very powerful and very well said, Dhruv. I have had a boss, and every time I could sense in my body, and that is what we're going to do a lot more in the coming session, tuning into our body to see how the threat response is triggering. And I could sense myself, and I would just control myself when I would, be having that kind of irritating conversation with her. So identifying those patterns, which we're going to do a lot more as we progress in session today, and identifying the response to that in our body, and thereby being able to control it is definitely, thank you for sharing that. And before we move on, I would just like to share that we keep, this is a housekeeping item I'm sharing. We keep getting a lot of requests from the participants to change the time for the sessions. Personally, I have no problem in changing the time to any time on Sunday. However, I would request the person who has that request to change to connect with everybody and get us 100% approval. So if the entire batch agrees to move the time to 8:45 or 9:30 or 4:30 p.m., anytime, I'm perfectly okay. But for us, it will be very difficult to follow up with everybody. So I've had requests coming in from 2, 3 different people. Sometimes we let go of participants also because of the time. So people want to join the program, but this time doesn't work. So we have to let them go. So I hope that is clear. Anybody, we are open to changing time to any time on Sunday, provided it works with 100%. So anybody who wants to make that request, please reach out to the people. You can do that in the group, have a vote, propose a time, have a vote on that. And if 100% people agree, we are happy to move that. So on that, then we will move further to understanding what are the causes of stress. And there could be different causes for stress. It could be, financial, which is one of the popular causes for stress. 50 to 70% of the people across the world say that finance is a major cause of stress. It could be just a simple fear of money running out, or too much of a month left at the end of the salary. So there used to be this popular, meme where they would say that salary is credited and then tuck, EMI gone, car EMI gone, home EMI gone, this gone, that gone. And, the minute the salary is credited, almost the same instance, it is wiped out. And unfortunately or sadly, that's not just a joke. It's a poor joke. It's a cruel joke, because many people are like that. And then they borrow more to get through the month, and then they just trap themselves more into that situation. So debt is an issue, or children's education could be another issue. Uh, Children's education is really expensive in India. In some countries like France, Canada, it's completely taken care of by the state. But in India, where we used to live in Gurgaon, it used to be 2 lakhs per child, and we had we have two daughters, 4 lakh rupees. And I know many parents in our friend circles who would, this would come up for conversation, this kind of fees, and that fees increases 5-10% every year. So it's a major financial concern. Or, when you have to go for higher education, if you don't get a government college, then the fees runs into lakhs of crores. Or even if you have to go abroad, then it's another matter altogether. Or the marriage or retirement fund, huge amount of stress. A lot of fights among couples happen for this reason. A lot of divorces happen for this reason. So finance is a big one. And you feel free to type in the chat if there is something else that comes up for you, either for finance or for relationships. Another major cause of stress, as I mentioned earlier, could be boss, colleague, sibling, parents, customer, anyone. And the sad part is nobody, this is not taught to us in our school, how to maintain relationships or how to manage our relations, emotions. Career is a big one. A lot of stress. I'm not growing fast enough, or all the challenges happen. Like credit is somebody, I'm not growing fast enough, and another challenge is somebody else is growing faster than me, and that one is growing because he is a favorite of the boss. Many other challenges happen on the work front. Children, parenting is a major issue. Children don't get along with parents. Parents don't get along with children. And my one of the things my daughter would tell her mother is, "Mama, you just don't listen." As basic as that, and that's a huge cause of stress for children. So parents don't have time to listen to children, and then in turn don't respond to parents. And then there is a huge thing about the academics or the friends they are hanging out with, or their digital addiction. Yeah, it's a completely different world altogether. Or bereavement or separation, major trauma around these. I had a friend in college whose girlfriend left him, and then he literally he was bleeding. He was drinking so much that he was bleeding. So separation can be very traumatic, or death of someone in close, or health, either your own health or the health of someone. If you're a caregiver, then it's another challenge for stress. And this is also a big cause of stress for many people. What the political environment in the world is, what is happening in America or China or Maldives or anywhere else, or the climate, so I was having a conversation, and the Pune is like 40 degrees already, which is so unusual for Pune, because we are cutting trees and it's hot and it's stressful. Crime and so many other things, or simple overwhelm. And I'm sure this is something you will all be able to relate to, that I am not where I should be. When we are at work, we are thinking of home or holiday. And when we are on a holiday, we are thinking of work. So there are many causes of stress, and I'll pause here to see if there is anything that comes up for you which we have not covered. Anything else that you would like to bring up on what is the cause of the stress before we go into understanding what is the root cause of stress?
No other specific thing stands out for me in terms of immediate causes of stress.
Okay. Well, so I guess we have covered mostly all. But let us understand that these are different causes of stress, but there is only one root cause of stress that मेरे हिसाब से नहीं हो रहा है. जो भी हो रहा है ना, वो मेरे हिसाब से नहीं हो रहा. अगर मेरे हिसाब से हो रहा होता तो ठीक है, बट अगर मेरे हिसाब से नहीं हो रहा तो ठीक नहीं है. And then there is stress. So if the person behaves like me, thinks like me, then it is okay. If things are happening as per me, then it is okay. But if not, then I'm stressed. It could be slightly small thing. It could be as big as possible, right? But things are not happening, and we in that way outsource our happiness to somebody else. Because if my wife behaves or husband behaves like I would like him to, then it is fine. If not, so my button of happiness is with somebody else. And if they be, I have no control over my emotions. If somebody behaves nicely, then I'm happy. If they behave otherwise, then I'm unhappy. So I'm not in control. Somebody else is in control. And that is how we live our lives, feeling powerless, and just trying to control people or things outside us. Whereas what one needs to understand is that the root cause of stress, or the root cause of the real reason, or the way to deal with stress is to accept things, people, emotions as they are, and focus on what we can influence. Otherwise, forever we can live our life blaming others, uh, and be judgmental of them, but it's not going to help us deal with the stress. And on that note, I come to this story about the pregnant deer. Some of you would have heard it, and I would like somebody to share, somebody who has heard this, to share it with those who have not heard. First of all, I would like you to raise your hand. If you have heard it, you can use your reactions button to share if you heard the female deer story, or you can type in the chat H if you have heard it, or NH if you have not heard it. Please type I have heard but don't remember fully. They were not heard, don't recollect. Okay. Not heard. Okay. So then I guess in the Dhruv remembers. Okay. So only Dhruv, would you like to share the story with everyone?
Uh, Ashish, I need to skip for next 10 minutes. I will rejoin.
Got
But
it.
yes, the story I remember clearly.
Okay. So let me share this story with you all. It's a story which is there in Beyond Limits. I guess all of you have a copy of Beyond Limits with you. And yes, the Anjana. So Anjana, would you like to share?
No, Ashish, you go ahead.
All right.
Sorry. I can't really speak where I am. You go ahead.
All right. So this is the story of a female deer who's full-term pregnant and needs to deliver a baby. She's in a jungle and she's surrounded by danger on all sides. She has got a river behind her which is flooded. She's got a hunter on her left who's got a bow and arrow and pointed in her direction. And she's got a hungry lion ready to pounce on her right side. And she's got a forest ahead of her, which is on fire. So she's trapped from all sides, and obviously she wants to bring her baby safely into the world. So I'll repeat the danger once again. She's got a flooded river on her back, on her backside. Behind her, she's got a hunter on her left, hungry lion on the right, and a raging fire in front of her. And she wants to deliver. She needs to deliver the baby as of now. What are her options? What should she do in this situation? There are no right or wrong answers, but what comes up for you, please share. If you were in the situation of the female deer, what would you do? Get the hunter to kill the lion. Okay, Anjana, you know the story, so anybody else? How would she do it? How would she get the hunter to kill the lion? Anybody else? What can the deer do? What can the female deer do in this situation where she's trapped and surrounded by danger on all sides? Can you relate to the female deer? Has a situation like that happened to you? Leave it to the Almighty. Okay. Yeah, so a slightly different take. What the female deer, there is only one thing that the female deer has control over. And what is that? She can't do anything to the hunter or the lion, hungry lion. Yeah, there is only one thing she has absolute control over, which is to deliver the baby. And the minute she takes that decision, that the only thing I can control is to deliver the baby. I can't do anything about the hunter, river, fire, or lion. The entire kainat moves. The entire world conspires to help her deliver the baby safely in the world. There's a loud thunder in the sky. The hunter gets startled and he releases the bow. The bow gets released, because startled, the bow gets released and the lion gets killed. And because of the loud thunder is followed by rain, which quells the fire. So suddenly, there is no, the hunter is gone because his bow is released, the lion is killed, and the fire is quelled. So minute we decide to take control of what we can control, the entire universe conspires in our favor. And I have shared this story in many of my sessions, and there is always someone who comes and tells me after the session that Ashish, this makes so much sense to me because I was, when problems come, they don't come alone. Sometimes you just get surrounded by problems on all sides. And, however hopeless the situation may be, the best way to deal with it is to focus on the teeny weeny little bit that we can control. I'll pause here to see if this makes sense. If something is coming up for you, anything you would like to share. Thank you, Dr. Abhishek. And this is not a story which is just about a female deer or a something happening in a remote jungle. You would all have heard of Michael Phelps, who's got 28 Olympic medals, 23 of them gold medals. In 2008 Olympics, he was swimming and his goggles in the Olympics final race, and his goggles malfunctioned. And the water entered in the eyes, in the goggles, practically blinding him. When you're in Olympics final race, there is nothing you can do if your goggles malfunction. You can't stop the race, you can't call your coach, you can't, change, whatever. He just did what he could have done, which is to keep swimming, and he kept swimming. That is the only thing he has control over. He can't see, but he can swim. So he kept swimming and eventually won that race. So controlling the controllable, focusing on controlling what we can control is the number one strategy for all champions, all business leaders across, You would have seen many leaders, real successful leaders, stay calm, irrespective of the challenge that they are facing or their company is facing, because they're always focused on what they can do. That also helps them keep their mind clear, like the Docky River image that we showed, and stay on top of things, right? Are you able to relate to this? Have you seen leaders who always remain calm? Is there anything else you would like to share about them, what their strategy is? Or business leaders, sports leaders, anybody else? Any experience you have had in your life? Yes, Deparna.
Um, I don't have any known business leader. My own boss, who's the founder of a startup, and there's insane amount of pressure in a startup with running a business. But I have seen her often, and she's same age as me. Um, I have seen her do this. I have seen her refocus on what can she do and what is in her control, and not looking to make the situation worse or better or anything of that sort. But yeah, there is a problem, but what can we do about it right now? That is always the attitude. It's not towards, it's not panicking, it's not talking to people, it's not checking with people, it's just thinking about abhi hum kya kar sakte hain, hum kya kar sakte hain. That's always the attitude. Just thought that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Deparna. Anybody else would like to share? Okay. We'll move on in the interest of time, and we'll be happy to hear from you. Now we are moving to the last one, which is triggers for stress, which is realizing our own personal stress triggers, right? And this is very powerful stuff because you would have either in your own life seen nuclear explosions happening, or you would have witnessed it for sure with some of your close ones. When we are triggered, we completely lose our sense of control, and that can be really damaging. And that is why it is very important for us to understand what triggers us. And as I think Dhruv was mentioning, that once we are aware, what triggers us, we can be better prepared for it. Typically, when something happens, the trigger, we have an automatic reaction, which is a conditioned response. And what we are going to do now is spend a couple of minutes understanding what triggers us, and then we will see how best can we, deal with it. And before that, I will just like to share this small story about Tandoor Kand. Some of you may be familiar with it. In, I think, 1995, there was a lady, Naina, who was killed by her husband. what happened is this guy comes home in the evening and he sees her wife talking to someone. He was suspecting her wife of having an affair with someone, and so he thought that it was her boyfriend that she was speaking to. And he was beginning to get angry and furious, and he asks her, "Who were you speaking to?" And she said that I was speaking to my mom. She's already always scared, and she says, she lies, saying that I was speaking to my mom. And those days they were the landline phones, and there used to be a redial button on the phone. So he comes and presses the redial button, and it was her mother. It was not her mother. It was the guy. This husband was suspecting of her having an affair with, was at the other end. So this person got furious and he pulled out his pistol and he shot her. And it didn't finish at that. Then he hacked her body and he put it in a tandoor. And that is how it got infamous as a tandoor kant. Right? Now, that is the power of trigger. If a wife is having an affair, if he is suspecting his wife about having an affair, should one really kill her and hack her, or should one talk? Obviously, when we are triggered, as I mentioned earlier, it is the ability to think is gone. Okay. So spend a couple of minutes, maybe 3-4 minutes, thinking what triggers you. It's very powerful to identify our own triggers. What triggers you? Is it boss's raised voice that triggers you? Your children's demands, that incessant demands raise you, trigger you? Never ending demands from customers trigger you? Not getting respected triggers you? Just looking at, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Devparna. What triggers you? Pay some attention, and especially if you have had some incidents in your life, not meeting expectations, your teammates not coming up to your expectations, Sasha. What is it? Children not meeting expectations triggers you. There is another aspect of what it tells us about ourselves, but we're not getting into that now. We're just understanding what triggers us. So one of my triggers is having to repeat myself, not people not paying attention to what I'm saying. So once or twice I can understand that there could be gap in what I'm explaining, but if people not understanding what I'm saying, because they're not paying attention, not because I'm not able to explain myself, triggers me. Or I have a habit of budgeting, and I give money to Ruchi or my children, X amount every month, right? But if they come back, if they have a need for something more than what has been agreed as the budget, then I get triggered. So what triggers you? Unexpected expenses trigger you. Children not meeting expectations, children not getting marks triggers you. Anybody would like to share, like Devparna and Sasha have shared? Anybody comfortable? You can type in the chat. People not understanding me triggers me, yeah. People not being honest, right? So think of a cab or auto guy who tries to fleece you, or an Ola who charges you more because you have an iPhone. You're booking through an iPhone. Whatever could be our triggers, right? Cleanliness, not, yeah, cleanliness at home or lack of cleanliness, whatever. So yes, Dhruv, you're saying something?
An experience I would want to share here,
Yes.
on which basis which I learned. Okay, uh, driving on Mumbai roads, or for that matter, anywhere, and if somebody cuts you, and you have to suddenly slam brakes or honk strongly. I used to, my first reactions such times used to be shout it out, uh, display your anger or my anger to the person. But what I realized is, I used to feel pain in my vertebrae. And then I realized it's actually I'm doing more damage to myself, while that guy doesn't really care about how angry he has got me. But it's me who is suffering. So I then, being consciously aware of it, I could do something about it. So taking deep breath or making it a joke, just telling to myself it as a joke, saying, okay, this guy again did something, or somebody else again did such a foolish thing. Laugh it out, and then I saw those stress in my vertebrae or pain in my vertebrae just vanished. Never happened after that.
Very beautiful, Dhruv. And Buddha says that anger is like a burning coal. It's like holding burning coal in your hand. It burns the person, who's holding the coal. So a great example, Dhruv, that, you could notice that awareness that it causes pain, and whenever you would reframe and change it, then the pain would go away. So identify your triggers and understand how you felt in that moment. The recording anyway will be shared in the group tomorrow. So continue to work on this. Physical symptoms like Dhruv just mentioned, increased heart rate as it used to happen to me when I would speak to my boss, or aches, pains somewhere in the body, constant tiredness. And what is the coping response? Like sleep it off, or eat, drink. We all have our coping mechanism. Now the choice we have is whether we continue with the unhealthy ones or we choose to deal with it. Like by reframing, beautiful example given by Dhruv, that you laugh it off, or and then how it helps, which is, does it help or not help? And what could you do differently next time? So being mindful of what our triggers are and how they are triggering us and what is happening to our body is very important. And it can be done by practicing the pause. Just pause. And whenever I talk about pausing, one of the typical pushbacks I get is I look dumb if I pause, and if I'm slow, or if I'm not responding, if I'm not like quick gun Murugan. And the point is, I'm not asking you to pause even for a minute or for a second. Typically, we react in 1/5 of a second. That's our reaction time. But even if we pause for a second, which hardly anyone will notice, it will give us a choice to, rather than react, observe what is going on, what am I feeling, and what is happening in my body, and then give choice to how am I going to respond rather than react in the situation. And that way, so imagine if that guy could have paused and not pulled out his pistol, and then the rest of his life he spent in the jail. Huh? So that's the consequence of not pausing. Or if you look at the Jessica Lal murder case, where she was shot at because the person couldn't deal with the fact that she denied him a drink. Okay, and he shot. So how, and then there's a consequence of spending your entire life, or it could be anything else. It could be a divorce, it could be whatever else. So what is the consequence? But is practicing, or you slap someone or someone slaps you, what happens? Because you are aggravated, you aggravate the other person, and then a fist fight happens. So pay some attention to your triggers. And what we are going to do now is the mindfulness practice for about 5 minutes, which is stress busting. And you can, Dev Parna mentioned about breath, as the first records. So that is what we'll practice today, breathing, paying attention to breathing. And then in the next session, we're going to go deeper and we're going to do a longer 20, 25 minutes practice of tuning into our body sensations. But this is this is kind of practice. This is short practice for and laying the foundation for the longer practice in the next session. So I now invite you to practice mindfulness with me. You can do sitting on your chairs or cross-legged on the floor. Sit with your neck and back in a straight line, straight but not stiff. Eyes gently closed. Chin parallel to the ground. Gentle smile on your face. Hands on your lap. And focus your attention, entire attention, on the area at the entrance of your nostrils. And observe every breath that is moving in and moving on. This is an exercise in just observing our breath, not regulating it. Continue to breathe. Breath may be coming in from the left nostril or right nostril or both the nostrils. Just observe. Enjoy this moment of breathing consciously. The past is gone. The future is yet to come. all we have got is the present moment. And in this present moment, we have a choice. And by exercising that choice, we claim our power. Moment by moment, every moment. Continue to breathe. And couple of seconds from now, we will come to the end of this session. Before we end the session, consider setting an intention that this practice of mindfulness will help you and everyone you connect with. Thank you for practicing mindfulness with me. And stay with the feeling for a couple of seconds more. Also use this time to reflect on what we have discussed today. And share with us what is it that you're going to do differently. This is what you have learned today. Look at your notes. Feel free to refer to your notes. We talked about what is stress. Thank you there, Pranav. I'll now invite you to share what did you learn in the session today and what is it that you'll do differently. I'll invite Devparna to start with. Dr. Abhishek, would you like to go ahead?
Hi, Ashish ji. Thank you so much for a wonderful session.
Thank you.
I welcome Reena to the group. Well, yeah, there is a lot of learning from the session today. Of course, we know that, we need to find out what are the causes of the stress, what stress is, how it impacts us physically, emotionally, cognitively. Very well, properly defined symptoms, very well curated, Dr. Ashish, on all these aspects. And so I think finding a trigger becomes a very important aspect in controlling our reactions, response to that stress. And the strategy, as you mentioned, control the controllable, and the story of the dear mother, how she reacts and how universe responds to her decision, and everything falls in place in a positive way. And so I mean, I think we also need to see our karmas are in a good and correct manner, because I always understand that we are all product of the past. Whatever karmas we have done in the past, we will have physical stresses, mental stresses, socio-emotional stresses according to that. So what we can basically do is control and bring our karmas uh, uh, in a better way so that our future is better. We can't control our past, but what we can control is our future by doing better karmas. And of course, the stress will be automatically taken care if our karmas are good. I think that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Abhishek. And we can control our karma by being in the present. And whom would you like to invite next, Dr. Abhishek?
Reena, please.
Hi, I was just writing in the chat actually. Great. So 3 takeaways for me today were definitely having a wind down routine, definitely focusing on what are my triggers and how does my body respond to it. And thirdly, I really like the idea of pause and seeing how that would work for me. Definitely, I would work with that on myself for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Reena. Whom would you like to call on next to share, Dr. Reena?
Rosina.
Rosina, are you there? And Dr. Reena, anyone else? Sasha? Rosina, okay, you're there.
Yeah. Okay. For me, it's like accept the stress, be in that situation, and it's like, okay, I'm having this stress. What next? That's the trigger. Second is the story of the deer. Like I'll be when I'm into stress. What's my priority at that point of time? I'll be focusing on that. That's the second learning. And the third is the impact of the stress on your physical body. That video was really an eye opener, and certainly I'll be working towards that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Rosina, whom would you like to call on next?
Dev Padna?
Hi, thanks.
Right.
Just 1 second. So one of the clear takeaways is bringing focus to myself. But I really like the idea of winding down, and I have not given that a shot yet. So I'm really starting. I'm going to start doing that, of course. But focus on myself, focus on my breath, and winding down. I think these are my 3 uh, strong takeaways. But yeah, focus on myself is my most favorite of all. So yeah.
Thank you, Dev. And whom would you like to call on next?
Anjana,
She's not there.
then maybe Dhruv.
There were a lot of learnings and revisions here. The key thing is being aware of it. As soon as one is aware of that the stress is more than what your body typically needs, the human brain is wired to act on it. We may at times choose not to act on it, but it is the default thing is to act on it. So being conscious of whenever stress is, or be able to observe ourselves is important, and that's one of the key action items I would say for myself. There are a lot of takeaways, especially that video of how the stress actually impacts different aspects of your body, your mind, all the way till immune system. That's very interesting. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Dhruv. And Dhruv, would you like to call on Sasha?
Yeah, Shasha is next.
Thanks. Yeah, first thing is winding down, understanding where the triggers are, and trying to work on self. So these are the three things, or the three takeaways.
All right, Sasha. Thank you, everyone, for participating actively and sharing your takeaways. The recording will be shared in the group tomorrow. Please watch it again. Connect with your accountability partners and discuss any challenges that you're facing with implementing this, or put it out in the group for everybody to respond on that, or any successes also. So both challenges and successes, stay actively engaged in the group and keep sharing. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend and see you next Sunday, 8:45 a.m.
Thank you so much, Ashish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a
Thanks,
great
Ashish.
Sunday, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So much, everybody. Have a great Sunday. Bye.
Bye. Bye.